have worked with PTSD.
Yes, that was my specialism. So when I was strictly a therapist, a psychotherapist, I worked in child protection, I worked with families, and but my specialism was always trauma. It's just helping people get back on their feet after either long-standing abuse or accidents, gunshot wounds, knife wounding, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So I'd worked, quite extreme trauma. And then what happened, basically over the last 10 years, I started to specialize in people who had their own businesses and knocked off their feet by something incredibly overwhelming. So it's either burnout, which was like a chronic drip of stress, and then their system can't take anymore.
Yep.
So my belief is the brain or the body will take you down if you don't look after yourself, or you can't look after yourself, or there's a one-off event that will just overwhelm every single sense and resource that you have, and then you'll break down. What used to happen was I would mainly work with the people once they're broken down, because I became known for the person that could help people recover. So I would always see people at their worst, like some people couldn't get out of the house. So I would work with people from their homes, and coming to my office would be part of their recovery, or they could just about get in the car and get to my office, and that's where that's all they were doing. So they were out of the boardroom, they were out of their business or their leadership role, and work with me in order to get well and get back into work if that's what they decided to do. And then about 4 years ago, I just like, what am I doing? Like, am I some kind of crazy horse? What am I doing?
Right.
Waiting. Oh, I'm probably going to lose charge. But what am I doing? Like, waiting for people to break down? Because I wasn't consciously going, oh, well, I'll just help all the broken people. But I just kind of woke up to the fact that if I knew how to help people with the neurology of trauma and get into recovery and healing, then if I reverse engineer that, then clearly I know a lot about prevention. So I kind of just went, I need to work with prevention. This isn't okay. You probably know as well as I do how upsetting it is to see people completely on their knees.
Yes.
And broken down. And then, on average, most clients were 6 months to 2 years in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Some would never go back to work because they were so sensitized to that workplace. They do other stuff.
Right.
So, I kind of just woke up to, I want to be on a mission to kind of put myself out of business, really. Let's start talking prevention, but mean it, really mean it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That is fantastic. So, can I give you 2 seconds kind of about why I was so excited when I saw your background and kind of what we're doing?
Sure. Yeah.
So here's the short version, right? Is that I'm actually have been an IT professional for about 25 years, but have gone through. But let's just put it this way. So, like, I think that that's not my gift, right? That's not my gifting. It's sort of like something that pays the bills, and I've kind of stumbled into for the past 25 years, and I'm good at, and all that kind of thing. But I've always had a very, very deep interest in sort of in education, in teaching, in people, relationship kinds of things, and sort of the journey of the sacred, right? And I finally kind of admitted that to myself that I need to be in that place and help people and things like that. And so I've gone through sort of I've been run through the mill in a variety of my own ways in my own personal journey, and sort of you there? So my own kind of personal reckoning happened when I went through a divorce several years ago, and right, and so sought therapy and all that kind of thing. So I'm now remarried, and the person that I'm married to, she happens to be has been a massage therapist for like the last 20 years. Started her own company from sort of one table thing in the basement of a chiropractor and built it up to, she has an 8-acre parcel that has, a very large spa, and it employs 30 people. I mean, it's just an amazing success story building from zero. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, she's an amazing woman, and I just absolutely, love and adore her. And one day we were talking, and we've been, ever since we, met and we aligned on a lot of this, sort of, relational kind of thing and helping people. And the fact that she's, you can say she's a massage therapist, but like she kind of jokes, she says, but it's in very serious, right? When people are naked on a table, in front of you, they tend to tell you lots of things about their stories, especially when you're pushing on muscles, and muscles have memory, and all these things, right? And so she's really a therapist in a very, very deep kind of way. So anyway, so she and I had been talking about what can we do together, and so a few years ago we created a business together. So she owns a spa, that's kind of her thing. I've been doing this IT thing kind of as a 9-to-5 guy. I've gone in and out of creating a couple of consulting businesses, but I'm back to 9-to-5er. But now I really want to move into this area that I know that I have gifting in, right? So a couple of years ago, we launched a company that's called the Chi Garden, QI, and it's a salt spa. And so inside of her spa, she had some space, and it helps people with respiratory issues and things like that. And we found some really, really great success. Well, over the years, my wife's spa has served about 60,000 people, and in the past couple of years, just through the salt spa, we've almost hit our 3,000 mark. But all of these people are people, right, that have to walk in the door, right? They have to physically experience something, and so. Sort of with my background and her background together, we kind of said, well, what would happen, and what do we have to do to take this online and global? And so we've been talking about this, and I've been rolling around for a long time in my head trying to figure this out. I mean, literally years. Like, what's my thing? How can I do this? And so one day at the table, just literally a few months ago, my wife said, when you kind of strip everything away and you kind of boil it down, what I really do is we heal stress. And like this, explosion went off in my head, and stars went all over, and things crystallized, and put whatever metaphor you want on it. And so healstress.com was born. And so we've decided to really focus on what it is that kind of she's been doing sort of all her life, and things that I have a very, very strong talent, I think, and knack for in that kind of thing, and to help people heal stress. Because our culture, whether you're here in the UK or wherever worldwide, it's all about dealing with stress, coping with stress, managing stress. And we think
it's crazy.
It is. And we think that there is a way to change and elevate the dialogue about it, and to, really address it more of what it is. And that's, come to core issues and address it long term and talk about it in terms of healing. Right. And so that's why when I saw your background, I'm like, oh my God, I've got to talk to this lady. Right. So this is just super awesome. And so what we've done is we've created a membership site, because I'm an IT guy. I've sort of built it from scratch and all this kind of thing. And so we now have a membership platform that we just launched, and we are just about to. My wife is actually on international travel, and she'll be back shortly. And when she comes back, we will begin recruiting, members, paying members for.
Right.
And so. And so what we've done is I've created a structure that kind of follows the hero's journey, and also follows a metaphor of seasons, right? So when you're in autumn, you kind of experience this crisis and have these difficult issues, and in winter, when you transition to that, it's really all about an internal journey and going deep and figuring out kind of what the source of all this stuff is. And then as you move to spring, you kind of come anew. And it's a renewal, and then there's sort of the summer part where you can thrive in that part of your life. And we're all at different stages in different parts of our life, right? Well, so we've kind of formed this structure and have created content. And one of the things, so that's a long introduction, but to sort of the core question, like, you are a person who has probably seen a ton of stress, right?
Yes.
And so my question is a very simple one. Is sort of like, how do you define stress?
Well, this is a fascinating subject, and we won't have long enough to give it a big, we'll give it a little squeeze today, but we won't be able to give it a big fat cuddle, because I'm fascinated by what we've done with stress. Like, in our culture, we talk there.
Oh,
I lost your connection.
I lost you too. Okay, I can hear you now.
This fascinates me, and I've been studying it my whole working life, 25 years. And
Awesome.
what I notice people do, and we do culturally, is we talk about stress as though it's an entity in itself, like it's a thing.
Right.
Like, so work-related stress is a blob of stress that you walk into, but it's not.
Right.
It isn't an entity. What it is it's the different demands on your resources that get filtered through your skin, your muscles, your hormones, your endocrine system, your neurology, and it gets interpreted and misinterpreted and adapted to and maladapted to.
Right.
So if there is such a thing as maladaptation, and that's another subject, because I'm not sure there is a maladaptation. I just think it's an adaptation, and you just got to find out whether it works for you or not, which is what I do with people.
Mm-hmm.
I help people rewire old neurology that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So, but here in the UK, it's so pervasive that stress is like a friend. It's like, I'm doing my 60-hour week. My stress is with me.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't. This is why I'm so keen to keep focusing on prevention of the stress in the first place, rather than recovery from it, because it's so accepted that we live in a state of arousal all the time that people don't know that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes.
Of course they don't. They don't realize that it doesn't have to be that way. Because if you change the relationship with yourself and you learn to look after yourself, and I'm generally helping people between 20 and 55, but I guess between 35 and 55 is my core. These people have had decades working from a neurological template which tells them that what you do is you keep going in your stressful state until you fall over.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. So a fascinating anecdote, right? Just if I can interrupt you just for a second, right? So my wife is actually where she's traveling. She's traveling in China, right? And she's a qigong instructor. Also, this is kind of the field that she's really developing for herself, and so she's went and studied with some masters. And one of the little anecdotes that she tells me when we're on the phone is everybody here in China in the cities. She said about from 20 to 55 is 20 to 50 or 20 to 60. She said, I couldn't tell. She said, they're not nice, and so she asked her guide, their Chinese guide, she's like, why are these people so rude? And she said, because they're stressed all the time. It's just so fascinating that you literally pinpointed, pretty much like the age range.
Yeah, and interestingly, people I work with, obviously they're very driven people.
Right.
Whether they're building a new business or they're already in a multi-million-pound business, they're very driven.
Right.
But it remains the same process, is that the relationship with self is the thing that gets ignored, so that the person can operate for decades in a driven manner, but what they do is they fall out with themselves. And so part of my methodology is creating such a companionable core self that you can't let yourself down and you can't fall out with yourself. Now, stress will topple anyone because we're human. the whole point of it, you'll take as much as you can take, unless what you have is a core relationship with yourself that is so robust you don't allow it. And what you do is you navigate and you adjust. Like and it's great working with business owners, because they know, like in the business world, look, you have to adjust your business. If it's not profitable, you do something.
Right.
And it's the same with yourself.
Absolutely.
It's the same with your neurological template. If it's not working for you, you adjust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what's fascinating is I was talking the other day, interviewing a doctor for Heal Stress, and he talked about that resiliency is kind of all in vogue, you know, now, and you know that there's a way that has entered the lexicon, and we need to be sort of mindful of how we're using that, you know, that word and that kind of thing. But here's
well, yeah.
So here's the other question that I want to ask you. So let's talk about the flip side now, right? And you talk about how you're sort of developing some, you know, curriculum and some, I imagine, and some things around being proactive to address that stress. One of the things that I went through when I went through a very, very dark period in my life that was related to my divorce is I got to a place where I realized exactly what you were saying, that I was kind of in this constant state of, you know, toxicity or whatever it is we want to call it. And I realized that there were points that I started to experience that I started calling the good place, right? Which was, if stress is this thing over here, then there has to be an opposite, which is a good place that I have been completely ignoring, right? And so I started, you know, saying to myself, I'm like, so what does that good place look like? And what does it smell like? And what does it taste like? What is that? And so I would be fascinated to hear what you have to say as you have worked with, you know, your clients, you know, throughout the years. Like, what does that good place, do you think, look like? Are there some common properties, or is it individual for each person, or what does that look like?
Well, for me, the good place would be you, so that it's not a thing. It's actually the core of who you are. Because because humans that can't master stuff tend to turn it against themselves and say, look at you, you're stupid, you can't recover. How come you're not recovering? You know, how come you're not recovering more quickly? So if you go to the very center of, actually, I'm me, and I get to operate in this body and with this mind, but there is a me in the middle of this, and I am thoroughly companionable, considerate and caring to me forever. And that means true responsibility. Actually, that's not going, oh, let's forgive everything, let's like move on. It's like being able to look. So the good place is that when you go into your core self, even if you've had physical or emotional injuries, you meet yourself there. You meet yourself in such peace and contentment. You have to do the process first, because we've mutated over the years, because we're not brought up to stay so pure. So it's kind of getting back to that pureness of who you are, and considering and caring for who you are and who you're not.
Yeah.
What you have and what you haven't, what you want and what you don't want. So it means that's true resilience, because if you cannot be knocked sideways by something, because you will always be you, no matter what, then for me, that's what the good place would be. And I remember that. I mean, I had a breakdown after a trauma, and actually, it's ironic that I actually ended up with PTSD in 2011 after an assault. My partner assaulted me.
Oh my God.
And I had terrible trauma. And I can remember I had fallen out with myself. And I was like, I can't cope with the enormity of this experience. It just took my faculties away. Wow. And I remember saying to myself, I am so entirely focused on that I won't recover, and the pain and the agony of this, like I went through similar process. I thought there must be the exact opposite. So if I swing the pendulum the other way, what's the exact opposite to this? Well, it's like being okay with myself. Even if I don't like everything I find in me, I can still love it. I can still love me and look after me, even if I don't like it. Like, I'm a bit messy, right? I'm a bit of a messy person.
We all are, yeah.
I'm a creative, you know?
Right,
I can't help
right,
it.
Right.
But I could fall out with myself, or I could accept it and I become more resilient.
Mm-hmm. And what I found when I was, started to pay attention to this is that it was kind of like such a new concept to me that I had to sort of name the qualities when I was able to accept myself and do these kinds of things. Like, what did it feel like? So, like, for me, what I realized is that I knew I was in the place of the good place when it started to feel calm, when it started to feel quiet, when it started to feel like right relationship, and it started to things had clarity. I felt like, when I was agitated or, that kind of thing, or I was anxious, or I was in sort of the bad place, things were not clear. They were, there was a jumble in my head. It did not feel calm. It felt something else. So did you have like any qualities that, where you were feeling inside where you could say, yes, I'm in the good place?
Well, they started as glimpses.
Mm-hmm.
And I write about this, that I'm just going to plug myself in so I don't lose you.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just going upside down so I don't lose you. For me, personally, they came as glimpses, and I do notice that with clients as well. They come as glimpses. Now, the process for me was, just trying to feel into it a little bit. No, I went from such disarray. Mm-hmm. I literally was shaking from head to foot, physically. And I didn't sleep physically. And I used to retch. I didn't. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for more than an hour at a time for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in such disarray. But when I decided to swing the pendulum the other way, I suppose it's a similar process. I had to come to acceptance of just what it was, just what had happened, and the fact that I was this emotionally injured, and going through I just knew that I had to become my own best friend. So there's something this is why I use the word companionability and being companionable to yourself. Mm-hmm. The good place for me was, look, no matter what, be your own best mate, be your own best friend, be your own best buddy. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not on your side, you're in a mess.
Right.
You have to be on your side, sure, because you're the one that lives with you.
Right.
You can't get away from you. So be your best buddy here, and you've got a chance. And what happened over time, it's funny you use the word quiet, is that I became so accepting of myself, all of who I am and all of who I'm not, that I started to get an inner quiet. It took a long time. It took me 2 years to even feel relaxation. Yeah. And I remember feeling it for 10 seconds and going, oh my God, I'm going to be able to relax again. You know, there was a glimmer.
Like, what was that?
I was so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember I was lying on the sofa and I went, my heart's not beating crazily. I'm not terrified. Maybe this can swing the other way. Mm-hmm. And actually it doesn't swing the other way. You have to work really hard at it.
Yes, you do.
but what the fascinating thing for me was when I could, because I see the process of recovery and healing as two different things. Mm-hmm. They're two different processes.
Yep, absolutely.
So when I knew that I got into healing, I was like, wow, it's so quiet in here. What's going on? Yep. It was just, I had this inner quiet. I still have it.
Fantastic.
I still have it.
That's
great. That the only thing that really crowds on is, there's life things that you might have to deal with day to day. And if my children are poorly or unhappy, I feel it for them. But on the whole, the stuff that's up here is just like crazy ideas of what I can do to help the world.
Yeah.
into in terms of burnout and overwhelming stress. But everything else, I'm quiet. I'm so quiet inside.
That is, and I guess for me, like in my journey, in that particular story, one of the other indicators for me is when I, because I did seek, professional counsel as well, is that I started realizing like I was in, the better place and starting to realize the good place when I would go to the counselor, to the therapist, and I wasn't talking about, the crisis issue anymore. And I had gone and I had sort of gotten through it. So I imagine you as a professional counselor, I imagine that you have that experience with clients where because during, what I would call the raw period, I don't know what the clinical term for it is because I'm not I'm not a clinician, but
it's a good word for it.
Well, that's what it is. It's raw. I mean, and
so
that's
raw.
And that's what we sort of term autumn, right? In the way that we're using sort of the seasonal metaphor, where it is just unequivocally brutal, right? And there's
I remember this.
Yeah,
I remember this, and I say to people, it was like living inside out.
Yeah,
it was like somebody. It was like somebody had turned me inside. You couldn't get more vulnerable because they saw all the blood and the guts and all my organs. They saw my soul.
Yeah.
And I felt that raw, that I was inside out.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I don't know if you went through this experience, but for me, everything that wasn't genuine just was like revolting to me. So I would be driving down the road and you'd have the radio on, and it would be just some radio voiced guy doing some commercial for some completely saccharine product or whatever, and it was just revolting. I mean, I couldn't even listen to it, right? And so during that period, like my senses were so heightened to anything, I kind of say that my BS detector was just on hyperdrive, right? It's sort of like anything that was like that, I just had no tolerance for. And when I started recognizing that about myself, I'm like, wow, there is, that inside out metaphor is that image is just perfect. And I think that, for anyone listening to this who's in that state or who has that kind of stress, I want to say one thing, and I would love to hear what you have to say about this as well, Anna, is that whenever I would be at work or I would be anywhere and I would be talking to guy colleagues or friends or whatever who had been through a similar experience, who had been through a divorce, they would invariably, I mean, it was like almost to a word, they would say this: dude, been there, it gets better. Right? And so it's like same kind of message is. Did you find that, do you find that clients who are hyper stressed, that kind of messaging is helpful to people?
Well, I had the opposite experience because nobody told me it would get better. Oh. Well, actually, one person did. Not even my therapist told me it would get better.
Oh.
And I literally thought I would never, ever recover.
Oh, man.
I totally believe you can recover. It's not going to be easy. It's taken you a while to get here. Mm-hmm. It might have taken you decades to get here. So, but I do think it's possible. And my belief in that is so intense that I do tell my clients that I think it's possible.
Well, I think that...
I don't dress it up.
Right.
It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take commitment and recommitment to the greater good and looking after yourself. But I've just realized the cafe's going to close on me.
Okay, well, we can wrap this up and we can always, do more later. But
it'd be great to.
Yeah, but let's close this part off then. And again, if there was one, if there was one piece of guidance, I won't even call it advice, or one part of your story that you think is most helpful to somebody who is, whether they're in that raw stage of stress or whether they're recovering or whether they're in the healing stage, what would it be?
Well, I hear myself saying this a lot, and I had to say this to myself. I said, it's not personal, it's neurological.
Wow, okay.
So if you take it as about you, like if your divorce is about you and the attack on me was about me, and yes, we've got a part in stuff, but it's not us as people, and that's not who you are. You are not your experience, and that it's so embedded into your neurology that it's not personal, it's neurological, and then you've got a chance of recovering. That's what I'd say.
That is fantastic, and I would imagine that extends to, more than just relational crises, but things like,
anything.
Your illness is not you, right? Your
redundancy is not you.
Yeah, the death,
bereavement's not you.
Right, exactly. The death of a loved one or your sickness or whatever it is, right?
But it's not,
fantastic.
And I'm not saying that in people. I'm not saying, that's because people are focused on being the victim of something. Quite the opposite. It's really important that you're the victim of something, because it bloody well hurts you. It hurts you. It injures you at a neurological level. That's what you're left with. That's what you need to recover and heal. You as a person was always good in any case.
So so let's keep up the dialogue and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that'd be so good. All right,
Excellent.
Lovely to speak to you. Take care.
Thank you, Anna.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.